Okay, so my name is Sarah Ward, and I'm 29 years old. I have two kids, a 9-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. I actually grew up in a very strict Baptist home. I graduated high school, and then I ended up getting a job through Indiana Mentor Network. And then right at the end of that is when I met my son's dad, and I thought I was found my forever, moved to Terre Haute, which the first part of our relationship, he was getting high, and I was drinking, but I was sober for the first 2 parts, 2 years of our relationship. And then my parents kind of noticed that I was more willing to chase him and what he was doing than I was to move back home and do what I needed to do to take care of my kid at the time. I'd gotten letters in the mail from Clay County Courthouse saying that my dad and stepmom were trying to fully take my daughter from me, and that was kind of my breaking point. And I was home alone, which, he was heavily into drugs, so even though I wasn't using them, I had full access to plenty. And one day I was just well, this makes him not feel anything and be careless, so that's what I'm gonna do. And then I started using drugs. I got on meth. I went from nothing to the most real quick. I didn't have a job. My car had gotten stolen off of literally out in front of my house. And literally I spent 2021 to 2023 just living as careless as possible. I found out I was pregnant around Valentine's Day last year. During my whole pregnancy, I was still actively using. September 14th of 2023, I literally woke up and I was trying to do laundry, and I just started bleeding. And I got to the emergency room at 10:13. They wheeled me back to the OR to have an emergency C-section. And that's the last thing I remember until 12 o'clock noon that day when I'm waking up. And they're you had the baby. He was born 3 pounds, 3 ounces. Right before the beginning of October, my DCS worker at the time had texted me. She was hey, are you at the house that you've been staying at? And I was yeah. And she's well, I'm on my way to talk to you. And she showed up with 2 cops, and they were we're here to remove your son from your care, which he was still in the NICU at this point. And I went from being at the hospital every day with him at the NICU to I got 45-minute supervised visits with him a week in the NICU. He was released from the NICU and went straight into placement. I was still getting to see him though, but it was only 2 hours a week. There's nothing more uncomfortable than doing your visits with your kids inside of a DCS office or an agency office where you're in this tiny little room, feeling uncomfortable. You're already in an uncomfortable situation just having to have a visit supervised. And they were well, we have this place called the Hope House. My DCS worker was you'll love it. It's more of a home type setting. There's people there around the clock that are there to help you, if you have problems, to make you feel you're at home. And I was so nervous about coming. But once my first visit came, it was kind of nerve-wracking, but Dawn and Greg and the hosts and everybody, the way that they just don't judge you and they accept you how you are, because I was still a hot mess at this point. This place has had the most impact really on my story, just the people and the just willingness to help you even when you don't deserve it. The Hope House was my safe zone. I got excited to come here not only to have my visits, but it was the only place that was clean, that I could come and make a meal with my kid there, because outside of here we were living in a truck, you know what I mean? I was court ordered to rehab on a Thursday, and I was I need to go back to the Hope House again before I leave for rehab, because those are my people. I need to see them and pray with them and know that I'm gonna be okay. The host that was here that day and Dawn and Greg, they all prayed with me and prayed for my situation, and I ended up going to rehab. And I was kind of heartbroken at that point, because then I had to stop doing my visits here, and this was my home. I became very close with all the hosts. They're mothers and dads to you when you don't realize it, when you need it. Church, God, and fellowship and staying connected with people, like that's what keeps me sober. 28th of October, I celebrated my 6 months of sobriety. I've gotten my license back fully. Like I went from only having 8 hours of supervised visits a week to I'm on my trial home visit with my son. I attend church regularly. Like I'm reunited with like all my family. I work full time and like I'm able to do that even having a trial home visit because he's able to attend the refuge. And so knowing that like my people, like the people that helped me are helping me still like help my son. If you put God in the center of your relationship, in the center of your sobriety, in the center of your life, and like just press into him, like 6 months I've accomplished things I couldn't accomplish in 5 years. So I fully believe if I stay surrendered to the Lord and like stay obedient and like keep that relationship with God and church and everything, that like God will provide. It was nice. Like this place will forever be like my home, whether you guys like it or not.